The day my sister asked for my inheritance money, she was wearing our mother's pearl necklace. I remember because the afternoon sun caught the delicate beads just right, making them gleam as she dabbed at her tears with a tissue. Those pearls should have been split between us, just like everything else our parents left behind. I'm Delaney, and until that day, I thought I knew my sister better than anyone else in the world. Dell, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Ainsley's voice cracked as she reached across my kitchen table to grab my hand. The medical bills, they're overwhelming. I don't know what else to do. I squeezed her fingers, noting how cold they felt. How much are we talking about? The treatments will cost at least $200,000. She pulled out a stack of papers from her designer handbag, the one she'd treated herself to last Christmas. I have some savings, but nowhere near enough. Why didn't you tell me sooner that you were sick? I pushed my coffee mug aside, my stomach churning. We're sisters, Ains. You should have come to me right away. She looked down, her shoulder-length dark hair falling forward to hide her face. I thought I could handle it myself. You know me, always trying to be the strong one. That was true. Ever since our parents died in that car accident 5 years ago, Ainsley had appointed herself as my protector, despite being only 2 years older. She'd helped me through college, celebrated my first job, and been there for every major milestone. Let me see those papers, I said, reaching for them. My friend Claire's voice echoed in my head, warning me to be careful. You're too trusting, Dell, she always said. But this was Ainsley, my sister, my best friend, my only real family left. The specialist says if we don't start treatment soon. Ainsley's voice trailed off. Don't even think like that, I cut her off. We'll figure this out. Camden, my childhood friend who worked at the bank, had just helped me invest most of my inheritance the previous week. The timing couldn't have been worse. I can liquidate my investments, I said, already reaching for my phone. It might take a few days, but... Oh, Dell. Ainsley's face crumpled. I don't deserve you. Looking back, I should have noticed how she wouldn't meet my eyes when she said that. The next few days passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Camden tried to talk me out of it. At least let me look over the documentation, he insisted during lunch. Something about this feels off. It's Ainsley, I said firmly. She wouldn't lie about something like this. He set down his fork with a sigh. People change, Dell, especially when money's involved. Not Ainsley, I insisted. You should see her, Cam. She's terrified. Claire was even more direct when I told her. You're making a mistake, she said bluntly. At least get a second opinion on her diagnosis. But I was already committed. I'd signed the papers, transferred the money, and hugged my crying sister as she promised to keep me updated on her treatments. I'll pay you back, she whispered. Somehow, someday. Don't be silly, I told her. That's what family is for. A week later, Ainsley texted to say she was flying to a specialized clinic for treatment. The messages became sporadic after that. Always brief, always vague. I told myself she was focusing on getting better. I'm worried about you, Claire said over wine one evening. You've given away your safety net. I shrugged, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. I'll rebuild it. I have a good job, and I'm young. Ainsley's health is what matters. And you're sure she's really sick? Claire, I snapped. How can you even suggest that? She held up her hands in surrender, but her eyes were sad. I hope I'm wrong, Dell. I really do. That night, I found myself staring at our last family photo, taken just months before the accident. Mom and Dad stood between Ainsley and me, all of us laughing at some forgotten joke. Mom's pearls gleamed at her throat, the same ones Ainsley had worn while asking for my help. I touched the frame gently. I did the right thing, I whispered to their smiling faces. Didn't I? But as I turned away from the photo, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that maybe, just maybe, I should have asked more questions. It would be 2 years before I discovered just how right that voice had been. The invitation arrived in a cream-colored envelope, embossed with gold lettering. You're cordially invited to celebrate the grand opening of Ainsley Carter Designs. My hands trembled as I read the words again. 2 years of sporadic contact, and now this? I smoothed my black cocktail dress and stepped into the converted warehouse space, immediately overwhelmed by the sheer extravagance. Crystal chandeliers hung from exposed beams, while waiters weaved through the crowd with champagne flutes and fancy hors d'oeuvres. Delaney, Ramona, Ainsley's friend from college, air-kissed my cheeks. Isn't this amazing? Your sister is absolutely killing it in the design world. Is she? I managed, accepting a glass of champagne. We haven't caught up in a while. Oh, you must be so proud. The way she built this business from scratch. Ramona gestured broadly at the space. Pure genius. From scratch. With my inheritance money. The champagne turned bitter in my mouth. Excuse me, I murmured, moving through the crowd. That's when I spotted her. Ainsley stood in the center of an admiring circle, wearing a red designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She looked radiant, healthy, not at all like someone who'd spent 2 years battling a life-threatening illness. Dell, she broke away from her group, embracing me tightly. You came. I wasn't sure you would. Wouldn't miss it, I said, studying her face. You look wonderful. Oh, thank you. The European air did wonders for my health. She waved to someone across the room. Have you met Thaddeus? Thad, darling, come meet my sister. A tall man in an expensive suit appeared at her side, all perfect teeth and carefully styled hair. The famous Delaney. Ainsley's told me so much about you. Has she? I forced a smile. Funny, she hasn't told me anything about you. An awkward pause followed before Ainsley laughed too brightly. Oh, Dell, always so direct. Thad and I met in Paris last year. He's been instrumental in helping me establish the business. Paris? I echoed. I thought you were at a specialized clinic. I was, but you know how I am. I couldn't sit still. Started sketching designs during recovery and everything just... She waved her hand, fell into place. Behind them, I overheard 2 women talking. Can you believe she started this company with just her trust fund? Trust fund. I heard she inherited everything when her parents died. My champagne glass nearly slipped from my grip. Before I could process this, Claire appeared at my side, gripping my elbow. I saw the invitation and knew you'd be here, she whispered. Are you okay? She's lying, I hissed back. All of it. The illness, the treatments. I know. Claire's face was grim. Camden's here too. He's been doing some digging at the bank. Across the room, Ainsley was showing off her designs to potential buyers. Each piece tells a story, she was saying, about transformation, about seizing opportunities, about betraying your sister, I muttered. Dell, Claire squeezed my arm. Don't do anything rash. We need proof. Camden materialized beside us, his expression serious. You're not going to believe what I found, he said under his breath. The money you transferred, it went straight into business accounts. There were never any medical bills. The room started spinning. I watched as Ainsley laughed, touched Thaddeus's arm, played the role of successful entrepreneur perfectly. She was wearing Mom's pearls again. I need air, I gasped, pushing through the crowd toward the balcony. The cool night air hit my face as I gripped the railing. Behind me, the door opened and closed. She played you, Camden said quietly, joining me, and she's still playing everyone in there. 2 years, I whispered. 2 years of worrying about her, checking my phone for updates, praying she was getting better, while she was building an empire with your money. I turned to face him. Help me, Cam. Help me prove what she did. He studied my face for a long moment. Are you sure? She's still your sister. No, I said, looking back through the windows at Ainsley's glittering party. My sister died the day she decided to steal from me. That woman in there, she's a stranger wearing my sister's face. Inside, Ainsley raised her glass for a toast. To new beginnings, she called out, and the crowd echoed her words. To new beginnings, I whispered, but mine would be different from what she imagined. As I watched her bask in her stolen success, something hard and cold settled in my chest. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about justice. The law office smelled like leather and old books. Aaron, our family's longtime lawyer, spread documents across his mahogany desk while I sat rigid in my chair, hands clenched in my lap. Your suspicions were correct, he said, tapping a stack of papers. There was never any medical treatment, no specialist consultations, not even a single doctor's visit during the time frame Ainsley claimed. Show me everything, I demanded. He pulled out a timeline he'd constructed. The money transfer happened here, he pointed. 3 days later, she registered Ainsley Carter Designs. A week after that, she booked a first-class ticket to Paris. My throat tightened. while I thought she was fighting for her life. There's more. Erin slid another document forward. Remember those medical bills she showed you? I had an expert examine them. They're forgeries. Sophisticated ones, but forgeries nonetheless. The office door opened and Camden walked in, carrying his own stack of files. Sorry I'm late. You wouldn't believe what I found in the bank records. Try me, I said bitterly. The money trail is clear as day. She used your inheritance as seed money for her business, then leveraged it to secure additional loans. The company's current valuation. He paused. Just over $2 million. I felt sick. Built on lies. Built on fraud, Erin corrected. What she did wasn't just morally wrong. It was illegal. These forged documents, the intentional deception for financial gain, that's criminal. So I can press charges? Erin leaned back in his chair. You could, but criminal charges would be messy, public, and could take years to resolve. There might be a better way. I'm listening. Civil suit, he said. We have enough evidence to prove fraud. With these documents, we could potentially secure not just your original inheritance, but a portion of the company's current value. Camden sat forward. There's something else you should see. He pulled up an email on his phone. Remember Ramona? She's been bragging about investing in Ainsley's company. Several other people at the party, too. Other investors? Erin's eyebrows shot up. That changes things. If she used fraudulent means to secure those investments. She's not just stealing from me anymore, I finished. She's running a whole scheme. Exactly. Erin gathered the documents into a neat pile. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I stood up and walked to the window, watching people hurry past on the street below. I want her to feel what I felt, the betrayal, the humiliation, My phone buzzed. A text from Ainsley. Lunch tomorrow? Have exciting news to share. She's still playing me, I said, showing them the message. Still pretending everything's normal. Use that, Camden suggested. The closer she thinks you are, the less she'll suspect. Erin nodded. Gather more evidence. Record conversations if you can. Check your state's laws first. The more we have, the stronger our position. And then what? Then? Erin smiled grimly. Then we plan the perfect moment to reveal everything. Something public, something she can't wiggle out of. My phone buzzed again. Please come, I miss my baby sister. Tell her yes, Camden said. Play along. Let her think she's still got you fooled. I typed back, of course, can't wait to hear your news. I'll need copies of everything, I told Erin, gesturing at the documents, and I want to know exactly what laws she's broken. He started organizing files. I'll prepare a complete briefing, but Delaney, be careful. People who are capable of this level of deception can be dangerous when cornered. I know my sister, I said, then caught myself. Or at least, I thought I did. Camden stood and put a hand on my shoulder. You're not alone in this. We've got your back. I looked at the text from Ainsley again, at her fake enthusiasm and manufactured sisterly love. Two could play at that game. Tomorrow at lunch, I said, I'm going to hug her and tell her how proud I am. I'm going to ask about her business and act impressed. And the whole time, I'll be planning exactly how to tear down everything she's built on lies. Erin handed me a thick folder. Document everything. Every conversation, every meeting, every text. We need to be methodical about this. As I left the office, another text came through. Wearing the pearl necklace tomorrow. Makes me feel close to Mom. Love you. The pearls. Of course she'd wear the pearls. I texted back with shaking hands. Perfect. See you then. The evidence was mounting, the plan taking shape. Tomorrow I'd smile and play the adoring sister. But soon, very soon, Ainsley would learn that karma comes with compound interest. You're engaged? I forced my face into an expression of delight as Ainsley flashed her massive diamond ring across the restaurant table. Oh my God, Ains, it's beautiful. Isn't it? She preened, the pearls at her throat catching the light. Thad proposed last weekend in the Maldives. It was so romantic, Del. You should have seen it. I could imagine it perfectly. Paid for with my money. Tell me everything, I gushed, pressing record on my phone under the table, just as Erin had suggested. Well, first he flew us out on a private jet. Ainsley launched into the story while I nodded and smiled, cataloging every detail, every extravagant expense. Claire's voice came through my earpiece, quiet enough that only I could hear. Ask her about the wedding plans. Get her talking about costs. I'd almost said no to the hidden earpiece, but Claire had insisted. You'll need backup, she'd said. Someone to keep you focused when she starts pushing your buttons. We're thinking a destination wedding, Ainsley was saying. Maybe the south of France? The company's doing so well, we can really do it up right. The company, I echoed. How is that going? I'd love to hear more about how you got started. Claire's voice. Careful, don't push too hard. Ainsley's smile flickered for just a second. Oh, hard work, determination. Speaking of which, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. She reached across the table and took my hand. The gesture was so familiar, so sisterly, that for a moment I felt my resolve weaken. Don't fall for it, Claire whispered in my ear. I want you to be my maid of honor, Ainsley said, her eyes shining with tears. We've been through so much together, especially with my health scare. My hand twitched in hers, the audacity of bringing up her fake illness. Of course, I managed. I'd be honored. Perfect. Oh, and there's just one tiny thing. She bit her lip. The maid of honor traditionally helps with some of the wedding costs. Claire's voice turned sharp. She's trying to scam you again. How much? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Just 30,000 or so. I know it's a lot, but with your promotion at work. I pulled my hand away, suddenly needing air. Excuse me, I mumbled, heading for the restroom. Inside, I gripped the marble counter, breathing hard. You're doing great, Claire said in my ear. Camden's outside with the camera. We got everything. The bathroom door opened and Ainsley walked in. Dell, are you okay? Fine, I said, straightening up. Just overwhelmed with happiness for you. She hugged me, and I caught our reflection in the mirror. Two sisters, one wearing stolen pearls, the other wearing a wire. I've missed you, she murmured. We used to be so close. We still are, I lied, hugging her back. Nothing could change that. Back at the table, she pulled out her phone. Look at these venue options, and wait until you see the dress I'm considering. I played my part perfectly, oohing and ahhing over her plans while she dropped casual mentions of costs and expectations. Each word was another nail in her coffin. After lunch, Camden met me around the corner. Got everything on video, he said, showing me footage of Ainsley arriving at the restaurant in her new Mercedes, including that interesting conversation about wedding costs. She's getting sloppy, Claire said, appearing beside us and removing my earpiece. Asking for more money so soon after the company's success? She must think you're an idiot. Or she's desperate, Camden suggested. Maybe the business isn't doing as well as she claims. I pulled out my phone, showing them Ainsley's latest text. Thank you for being the best sister ever. Can't wait to go dress shopping. She's planning something bigger, I said. This wedding is just the start. She'll keep taking and taking until there's nothing left. Then we move faster, Claire decided. Aaron says he has everything we need. We just need the right moment. The engagement party, I said suddenly. She mentioned they're having it at the company headquarters next month. Everyone will be there. Investors, business partners. Camden nodded slowly. Perfect timing. Maximum impact. Are you sure you're ready? Claire asked, studying my face. This will destroy her. I thought about the lunch we'd just had, about how easily the lies had flowed from my sister's lips, about how she was already planning to take more from me. She destroyed herself, I said, deleting her text. I'm just going to make sure everyone knows it. The pearls around her neck had belonged to our mother, a woman who'd taught us about honesty, integrity, and family. Ainsley had betrayed every one of those values. It was time she learned that some debts can't be paid with money alone. I found Thaddeus alone at the hotel bar, nursing a whiskey neat. The engagement party planning meeting had run late, and Ainsley was still upstairs with the event coordinator, obsessing over flower arrangements. Buy you a drink? I asked, sliding onto the bar stool next to him. He looked surprised, but nodded. Scotch for the lady, he told the bartender, whatever she's having. Rough day? I asked, noting his loosened tie and tired eyes. Your sister, he sighed, has expensive taste. That she does. I took a sip of my drink. Must be hard keeping up with her lifestyle. Between the party, the wedding plans, and the company expansion, He shook his head. Sometimes I wonder where all the money comes from. I studied him carefully. You don't know? Know what? About her medical history? The treatments? His forehead creased. What treatments? The scotch burned in my throat. So he didn't know. Ainsley had kept her lies compartmentalized, telling different stories to different people. Never mind, I said quickly. Just something from years ago. Delaney. He turned to face me fully. What aren't you telling me? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Don't do it. Stick to the plan. But looking at Thaddeus's confused face, I made a decision. Buy me another drink and I'll tell you a story. An hour later, his face had gone pale. You're sure about all this? I pulled out copies of the forged medical bills, the bank statements, the timeline Aaron had prepared. See for yourself. His hands shook as he examined the documents. The company, it was built with your money? Every penny of my inheritance. Jesus Christ. He drained his glass. The investors, they have no idea. And I've been bringing in more people, telling them about our success story. You're as much a victim as anyone, I said softly. He laughed bitterly. Victim? I'm an accomplice. I've been vouching for her, bringing in investors. If this gets out, I could face charges. Unless you help me. His head snapped up. What? The engagement party. Help me expose everything. You want me to turn on my fiancé? I want you to do the right thing. I gathered the documents. Think about it, but think fast. Dell! Ainsley's voice rang across the bar. There you are. What are you two plotting? I stood, smoothing my face into a smile. Just getting to know my future brother-in-law better. She wrapped her arms around Thaddeus from behind. Isn't he dreamy? I got so lucky. Our eyes met over her head. His were full of questions, mine of answers he didn't want. The florist finally agreed to the imported peonies, Ainsley continued. Only an extra 5,000. Oh, and Dell, I need you to come look at bridesmaid dresses tomorrow. I'm thinking silk charmeuse. Whatever you want, I said, watching Thaddeus's face as he processed how easily she spent money. His money, my money, everyone's money. My phone buzzed again. Claire, where are you? Emergency meeting at Camden's. I have to go, I said, gathering my purse. Early meeting tomorrow. Ainsley pouted. But we haven't finished the seating chart. Tomorrow, I promised, hugging her goodbye. As I did, I whispered in Thaddeus's ear, Your choice. Make it soon. Outside, the night air cleared my head. My phone rang. Camden. Where have you been? Aaron found something big. I just told Thaddeus everything. Silence. Then, are you insane? He deserved to know, and we might need him. Or he might warn her. He won't. I flagged down a taxi. You should have seen his face when he realized what she's done. He's scared. This wasn't part of the plan. Plans change. I gave the driver Camden's address. What did Aaron find? Get here first. You need to see this yourself. I leaned back in the taxi, remembering Thaddeus's shocked expression, Ainsley's casual mentions of thousands spent on flowers. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It's Thaddeus. We need to talk. Tomorrow, same bar, noon. Come alone. I showed the message to Camden when I arrived at his apartment. He, Claire, and Aaron were gathered around a laptop, faces grim. Perfect timing, Aaron said, because what I just found makes your sister's fraud look like a parking ticket. How bad? He turned the laptop toward me. Remember those investors she's been bringing in? Wait until you see where their money really went. I sat down heavily, my conversation with Thaddeus echoing in my head. He'd called himself an accomplice. Maybe he knew more than he'd let on. Noon tomorrow, I said. We'll find out exactly what he knows. And if he's playing you? Claire asked. I thought about the fear in his eyes, the way his hands shook holding those documents. He's not. He's just another person Ainsley's been lying to. Like all of us, Camden said quietly. Like all of us, but not for much longer. Thaddeus was already waiting when I arrived at the bar, a manila envelope on the table in front of him. His hands trembled as he lifted his coffee cup. I haven't slept, he said without preamble. Spent all night going through the company records. And? He slid the envelope across the table. It's worse than you think. The investor money? She's been moving it offshore. Shell companies, fake accounts. I found at least 6 million unaccounted for. My stomach dropped. 6 million? I should have seen it sooner. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. The numbers never quite added up, but she always had an explanation. God, I'm such an idiot. We all were. I opened the envelope, scanning the documents. Why are you showing me this? Because the engagement party next week? It's not just a party. She's planning to announce a new investment round. Bigger investors, serious money. He leaned forward. We have to stop her. My phone buzzed. Aaron, don't trust him yet? Get proof he's not involved. How do I know you weren't part of this? I asked, watching his face carefully. He pulled out his own phone, playing a recording. Ainsley's voice filled the air. Just sign the papers, Thad. Don't worry about the details. That's what our accountant is for. That was 3 months ago, he said. I signed whatever she put in front of me. I'm as liable as she is. Unless you help us? That's why I'm here. He pulled out another document. The party guest list. Look who's coming. I scanned the names, stopping at one in particular. The state's financial crimes prosecutor? Ainsley doesn't know who he is. She just knows he's wealthy and interested in investing. Thaddeus smiled grimly. Perfect timing, wouldn't you say? My phone buzzed again. Claire, everything ready at the venue. Just need your final approval on the presentation. The presentation, our weapon of choice. A carefully crafted slideshow of evidence, ready to play on every screen in the building. We'll need access to the venue's AV system, I said. Already handled. He pulled out a security badge. Full access to everything. I told her I wanted to do a special video tribute. You've thought this through. Haven't slept, remember? He took a shaky breath. There's something else. The pearls she wears? Your mother's pearls? What about them? She sold them. The ones she wears now are fakes. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. She what? I found the receipt. Some private collector in Dubai. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry. My phone buzzed continuously now. Messages from Claire, Camden, Aaron, all wanting updates. I ignored them, focusing on breathing. The party starts at 8, Thaddeus continued. She's planning to make the investment announcement at 9. If we're going to do this, we do it at 8:30, I cut in, before she has a chance to scam anyone else. He nodded. I'll make sure the prosecutor is there by then. And you're sure about this? I studied his face. Once we start, there's no going back. She's going to destroy everything anyway, he said quietly. At least this way, we might save some people from losing their money. My phone rang. Camden this time. I answered on speaker. The prosecutor confirmed, Camden said. He's bringing his whole team. Once they see the evidence. She'll go to prison, I finished. Thaddeus flinched but didn't protest. One more thing, Camden continued. We found something in her personal emails. She's been talking to someone about leaving the country. Private jet, new identities. When? Thaddeus and I asked simultaneously. Next week, right after the party. I met Thaddeus's eyes across the table. No wonder she'd been pushing so hard for more investments. She's planning one last score, he said. Take everything and run. My phone lit up with a text from Ainsley. Found the perfect dress for you. Fitting tomorrow at 10. Don't be late. Tell her you'll be there, Thaddeus said. Everything has to seem normal. I typed back. Can't wait. Tomorrow morning, I told Thaddeus. I want every document, every recording, everything you have. Aaron needs time to verify it all. He nodded, standing. 8:30 next week. It'll be the performance of a lifetime. No, I said, thinking of the fake pearls, the stolen money, the years of lies. It'll be the truth. Finally. As he left, my phone buzzed one last time. Claire, are you sure about trusting him? I looked at the documents he'd provided, thought about the fear in his voice when he talked about prison. He's in too deep to back out now, I replied. And he knows it. The engagement party was 6 days away. In 6 days, everything would change. I just hoped we were ready for what came after. You look stunning, Ainsley gushed, adjusting my emerald green dress. The perfect maid of honor. 8:15, 15 minutes until everything changed. The engagement party was in full swing. The company headquarters transformed into a glittering wonderland. Champagne flowed freely as investors and socialites mingled, all of them potential victims of my sister's final scam. Is everything ready for your big announcement? I asked, watching her adjust her fake pearls in the mirror. Oh, yes. Her eyes gleamed. These investors won't know what hit them. You have no idea, I thought. My phone vibrated. Camden, prosecutor and team in position. Aaron has the files ready. I need to use the bathroom, I told Ainsley. Back in a minute. In the hallway, I met Thaddeus by the AV control room. His face was ashen. Security systems disabled. Claire has control of all screens. Any sign she suspects anything? He shook his head. She's too excited about the money she thinks she's about to make. 8:23. My hands shook as I texted Claire. Start the countdown. Back in the main room, Ainsley was working the crowd masterfully. You simply must hear about our expansion plans, she was telling a group of eager-looking investors. 8:27. Dell, she called out, come tell everyone about how you've watched the company grow. I walked over, smile fixed in place. Of course. I remember when it all started. 8:29. The lights dimmed slightly. Ainsley looked confused. That's not supposed to happen yet. 8:30. Every screen in the building flickered to life. Instead of Thaddeus's promised tribute video, a different presentation began. Ainsley Carter Designs, The Truth Behind the Success, appeared in bold letters. The room fell silent. What is this? Ainsley grabbed my arm. Dell, what's happening? The presentation continued, showing bank statements, forged documents, the fake medical bills. Each piece of evidence was clearly labeled, clearly explained. Turn it off, Ainsley screamed at Thaddeus. Now! But he stood frozen, watching along with everyone else as the truth unfolded on every screen. The prosecutor moved closer, his team quietly blocking the exits. And the investors' money? The presentation showed flowcharts, offshore accounts, plans for disappearing with millions. Gasps and angry mutters filled the room. Someone shouted, "Call the police." "They're already here," the prosecutor announced, stepping forward. "Ms. Carter, we need to talk." Ainsley's face went from red to white. She turned to me, realization dawning in her eyes. You did this?" "No, Ainsley, you did this. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal, that was all you. I'm your sister. You stopped being my sister the day you faked cancer to steal my inheritance." The room erupted in chaos. Investors shouted demands for their money. The prosecutor's team moved in. "You don't understand," Ainsley pleaded, backing away. "I had plans, big plans. I was going to pay everyone back." "With what money?" Thaddeus asked quietly. "The money you were planning to steal next week?" She spun toward him. "You knew? You helped them? I couldn't let you keep destroying lives." Ainsley's hand flew to her throat, clutching the fake pearls. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually," Aaron stepped forward, documents in hand. "We can prove all of it. Every transaction, every forged document, every lie." The prosecutor nodded to his team. They moved toward Ainsley. "Wait," she cried. "Dell, please, we can fix this. I'll give you back your money, You can't," I said softly. "You already spent it, just like you sold Mom's real pearls." Her hand dropped from the fakes at her throat. "Ms. Carter," the prosecutor said, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and multiple counts of financial crimes." As they led her away, she kept looking back at me, tears streaming down her face. "Dell, please. I'm your sister. Don't let them do this." I turned away, unable to watch. Claire appeared at my side, gripping my hand. The remaining guests were talking to the prosecutor's team, giving statements, demanding answers about their investments. "It's over," Claire whispered. But it wasn't. Not really. This was just the beginning of a long legal battle, of untangling years of fraud, of trying to make things right for all the people Ainsley had hurt. Thaddeus touched my shoulder. "I'm sorry. About all of it." I nodded, watching as the last of the guests filed out, leaving behind half-empty champagne glasses and shattered dreams of easy wealth. My phone buzzed one final time. "Camden, you okay?" I looked around the empty room, at the screen still displaying evidence of my sister's crimes, at the space where she'd stood moments ago in her fake pearls and false success. "No," I typed back, "but I will be." The truth had finally come out. The price had been high, my sister, my trust, my family name. But as I walked out of the building, I felt lighter than I had in years. Sometimes justice comes at a cost, but some prices are worth paying. The courtroom fell silent as Ainsley stood for sentencing. Gone were the designer clothes and fake pearls, replaced by a plain black suit that hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight during the trial, her face drawn and pale. "Before I deliver the sentence," the judge said, "would the defendant like to make a statement?" Ainsley turned, her eyes finding mine in the gallery. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. "Not for getting caught, but for everything before. Del, I convinced myself I deserved that money more than you did, that I could do more with it. But really, I was just greedy and jealous." The prosecutor shifted in his seat. We'd rejected multiple plea deals to get to this moment. "The court recognizes the defendant's remorse," the judge continued, "but the severity and scale of these crimes cannot be ignored. Multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and financial crimes affecting dozens of victims." I felt Claire squeeze my hand as the judge detailed each charge. "Therefore, this court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 5 years. Additionally, you are ordered to make full restitution to all victims, starting with your sister's inheritance." The gavel struck. Ainsley's shoulders slumped. As the bailiff let her out, she paused by our row. "The real pearls," she whispered. "I can tell you where to find them." "Keep them," I said. "Sell them. Use the money to start paying people back." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. "Ms. Carter, how does it feel to send your own sister to prison?" "No comment," Claire said firmly, pushing through the crowd. "Actually," I turned back, "I do have something to say. Family isn't just blood. It's trust, honesty, and love. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do for family is hold them accountable." At the bottom of the courthouse steps, Camden waited with his car. "Ready to go?" "One more stop," I said. We drove to our parents' grave. I hadn't been here since before everything happened. Someone had left fresh flowers, probably Thaddeus, who'd received a reduced sentence for his cooperation. "They'd be proud of you," Claire said, standing beside me, "for standing up for what's right. Would they?" I touched the cold stone. "Their daughters. One in prison, one who put her there." "One daughter who chose honesty," Camden corrected. "One who chose lies. They'd understand the difference." My phone buzzed, Aaron calling with news about the restitution process. Some of Ainsley's victims would get their money back. Others would have to wait years. "I've been thinking," I said, declining the call, "about starting a foundation, using whatever money we recover to help people who've been victims of financial fraud." "Turn something broken into something beautiful," Claire nodded. "Perfect." "I'll help," Camden offered. "My bank connections could be useful." A light rain began to fall as we walked back to the car. I paused, looking back at the grave. "You know what Mom used to say about those pearls?" I asked them. "That they represented our family legacy. Truth, integrity, love. Ainsley thought she could replace all that with fakes. But you couldn't," Claire said softly. "No," I agreed. "I couldn't." Back home, I found a package waiting. Inside was a familiar cream-colored box and a note in Ainsley's handwriting. The buyer agreed to return them. His conscience bothered him after seeing the news. Maybe mine is finally bothering me too. Love, A. The pearls gleamed in the box, real this time. I lifted them out, feeling their weight. The weight of truth, of consequences, of forgiveness not yet earned, but possibly someday deserved. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Ainsley, from prison. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I hope having them back helps. I'm starting therapy here, learning why I did what I did. Maybe someday you'll visit?" I sat with the phone for a long moment before replying, "Maybe someday. For now, focus on getting better, on being better." Claire read the exchange over my shoulder. "You're leaving the door open?" "Slightly," I said, closing the pearl box, "but with better locks this time." Camden picked up the box. "Where do you want to keep these?" I thought about it, then smiled. "Display them. Right where everyone can see them." "As a reminder?" Claire asked. "As a lesson," I corrected. That real things, real love, real trust, real family, can't be faked, and that sometimes the hardest choices lead us back to who we're supposed to be. I placed the pearls on my mantle, catching their gleam in the fading light. They weren't just jewelry anymore. They were a story, a warning, a hope for redemption. And maybe someday, they'd be a bridge between two sisters who had to lose everything to remember what really mattered. But for now, they were simply true. And that was enough.